The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet stupid.
And Belinda remains away, so we soldier on without her, and there's plenty to talk about. In fact, I wanted to touch on a pretty big announcement that was made. There is this from The Guardian, what they call staggering green growth, giving hope for the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal, according to the global energy chief. The prospects of the world staying within the 1.5 degree, because you get all the news from the UN spokespeople and most climate scientists who tell you we're pretty well cooked, literally. Yeah. The prospects of the world staying within the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit on global heating have brightened, owing to the staggering growth of renewable energy and green investment. That's just in the past 2 years. This is according to the chief of the world's energy watchdog. Fatih Birol, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, said, much more is needed to be done, but that rapid uptake of solar power and electric vehicles is encouraging. By the way, he is the world's foremost energy economist, so he's not nobody. Despite the scale of the challenges, he says, I feel more optimistic than I felt 2 years ago. Solar photovoltaic installations and electric vehicle sales are perfectly in line with what we said they should be, to be on track to reach net zero by 2050, and thus stay within the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. Clean energy investments in the last 2 years have been a staggering 40% higher. But he also noted that greenhouse gas emissions from the energy sector were still, quote, stubbornly high, and that extreme weather seen around the world this year had shown the climate was already changing at frightening speed. There's a net zero roadmap that they published, and it really calls on developed countries with 2050 net zero targets, including the United Kingdom, to bring all of that stuff to pass in the next few years. Yeah. So I took a little bit of, shall we say, optimistic views when it came to that. Then, of course, there's this. Monster fracks are getting far bigger and far thirstier than before.
No.
Giant new oil and gas wells that require astonishing volumes of water to fracture bedrock are threatening America's fragile aquifers. Again, you'll remember the way they get that fracking done, the way they bust loose the bedrock is with water. Water, and there's a terrible toxic mix of chemicals. And by law, these are new laws that go in. These are regulatory laws, but they have been overturned. Those that would have required that we, the public, where, we're exposed to fracking chemicals and a lot of this stuff that some of which ends up in the soil, some of which does not. It's drained out, now completely toxified, and then it's trucked away from the fracking site. There's no regulation on us knowing what chemicals are in there. They're under no obligation, these companies, to tell us. Increasingly complex oil wells are sweeping across Texas, the birthplace of the fracking revolution and the nation. An analysis by, I believe this is the LA Times, found that these new wells can consume millions of gallons of water, often taking that water from dwindling aquifers. To satisfy that thirst, energy giants are drilling not just for oil, but for what? For more water. Nationwide, fracking has used up nearly 1.5 trillion gallons of water since 2011. That's how much tap water the entire state of Texas uses in a year. 1.5 trillion gallons. And they talk about this expansion of fracking and the need for water consumption by the oil industry to again reach record levels.
Does it
Fracking-
go right
sorry.
back into? Does it go right back into the ground? That toxic water?
No, it typically in a fracking situation will be taken out of the ground and trucked away. But there's so much of it that oftentimes it ends up not all in the truck, and a lot of it can end up in like the surrounding area. And with bad weather, for example, they kind of just blow off a lot of the, it doesn't all have to go in the truck type thing.
No.
But let's assume it all goes in the truck. Okay, fine. The other problem is that a lot of this drilling is going on near natural aquifers. And so you have the very real potential of a toxification of an underground water supply. And once it's toxified forever. And so this is a real threat. I get it. Fracking, transformational in the way it created an energy independence for the U.S., but the environmental damage and the environmental price is super high. Today, the insatiable search for oil and gas has become the latest threat to the country's endangered aquifers, they say, a critical national resource that is already being drained at alarming rates by industrial farming and cities in search of drinking water. The amount of water consumed by the oil industry, revealed in this investigation, has soared to record levels. Fracking wells have increased their water usage 7-fold since 2011. Operators have adopted new techniques to first drill downward and then drill horizontally for thousands of feet. That process extracts more fossil fuels, but requires enormous amounts of water. Together, oil and gas operators reported using about 1.5 trillion gallons of water, as I said, from 2011. These mega fracking projects, called monster fracks by researchers, have become the industry norm. They didn't even exist a decade ago. Now they account for almost 2 out of every 3 fracking wells in Texas. And Texas is where a lot of this is going on. So while we talk about energy, and boy, on that stage last night, it's all drill, baby, drill, frack, baby, frack. And so, this is a real problem. And places in Texas are suffering. Places are suffering in Texas that need that water. Laredo, a city on the Mexican border that recently imposed water restrictions, have residents now only watering their lawns 3 days a week and only at night. It's become fracking territory, Laredo has. It's facing an impending water shortage. By 2040, it's expected to exhaust the available supply of municipal water from the Rio Grande. And even during severe drought, fracking is excluded from any restrictions, city or state. I'll say it again. Even during a severe drought, the company that gets a pass on water use, oil and gas fracking operations. So, as usual, we bend over for corporate polluters. Fracking can be done with liquid propane, says PT, which then comes out of the well as a recoverable gas. It costs more, though. That's interesting. Well, it explains why they're not doing it in the numbers that they're doing fracking with water, because it costs more. So, once again, sadly, money rules the day.
Yeah.
So, the good news and the bad news. One more little piece of good news. ExxonMobil lost a court bid. This is out of Santa Barbara. They lost a court bid yesterday to truck millions of gallons of crude oil through the Central Valley. A crucial part of their effort to restart offshore oil wells that were shut in 2015 after a pipeline leak caused the worst coastal spill in 25 years. A federal judge refused to overturn the 2022 decision by the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors that denied ExxonMobil's request to use trucks to carry crude from 3 wells. The pipeline was shut down May 19, 2015. You remember there was a corroded section above the ground that ruptured. 140,000 gallons of oil spilled out onto the beach and into the ocean.
Sad.
And There was another Santa Barbara oil disaster about, I want to say, 20 or 30 years ago, right? So anyway, the good news is, at least from my standpoint, the good news is that there was a ruling against ExxonMobil. That doesn't happen much out of Santa Barbara. It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More.
It's the planet stupid. No, it's the planet stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.